One of the difficulties that arises when running a sandbox campaign is getting your players to be proactive or active instead of reactive. This can be a really big challenge. And one of the things that I found that helps players become engaged with the sandbox is not just dropping them down into the sandbox and saying, okay, now go. It's not even dropping them in the sandbox and giving them 3 or 4 things and then saying, now go. It's giving them an actual task to start out with. And what I like to do with this initial task is use it as a means to get the players involved, or at least familiar with some of the forces at play, with some of the geography, have some interaction with some different factions. In a sense, really allow them to kind of get their feet wet with the world, but in a structured way, because they have a task and they need to complete that task. In one game that I ran, I had the party showing up to a new continent to them. And when they arrived there, part of the deal was that, well, the folks in charge paid for their passage, but now they had to pay them back by doing a task for them before they then could do whatever they wanted. They were in this whole new environment, and they were going to have the ability to do whatever they want, but first they have to pay this price. So first they had to go and complete a task to do that. Another game that never got off the ground, but part of my initial campaign pitch was that the party were coming of age, and that the Lord requires of everybody coming of age to do sort of a year of service, and that the things that we're going to kick off the campaign we're going to start basically at the end of that year of service, which is another way of me being able to say, okay, since you're still under this Lord's year of service, he's going to tell you to go do something, but then quickly after that you were going to end up on your own. What these things do is they give structure. So the party, the players, will be able to keep in their minds, okay, I have something to do, and I know what that is, and I can take steps to do that, which is different than showing up in a world and maybe you have some vague idea of what you may want to accomplish and your kind of player goals and maybe your long-term character goals, but it can be hard, that kind of blank canvas problem, to look at this whole new expanse that's in front of you and figure out, well, what is my next immediate step? Having a task that you're already given, it kind of gives you that immediate step already. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do in a month from now, or how to get from here to a month, but I know I have to do this thing first. It also allows you as the GM to work within your boundaries a little bit better, because with a task, because it has an objective, because it isn't completely open-ended, you can kind of frame where your party is going to operate to complete this task. So if you're using something like Gygax 75 Challenge, or using Chicago Wizards 3 Hex concept, where you're only really describing just a little bit of the world around your party, there's the obvious danger of, what if the party decides to just run off and go to a place that I haven't thought about yet? Not that you can ever completely eliminate that problem, but if you give them a task that is within that area, chances are they're going to stay in that area to resolve the task. So you can kind of, if only allay the fear in the back of your mind that you've put all these things for the players to the east, and they're going to turn tail and go west. So by giving them a task with a specific objective that can be tied to a certain faction or a certain area or both, or an item, you can kind of structure things. The other thing that an objective does for you as a GM is gives you some structure. You can get lost trying to figure out all the things that you need to prep for your campaign, especially in a sandbox type setting. However, if you keep in mind the elements that are involved in this particular objective, you can at least put those front of mind, and you can look at your checkbox of, what do I need to get this objective fleshed out? I need factions, whichever factions are involved. I need whatever locations are involved. I need whatever objects are involved, so on and so forth. That may feel like a lot or a little, depending on what you've set up for this task. However, it's less than the world. So by creating this task, you have also narrowed the amount of prep that you need to do. So creating a task gives the players a guiding light, something that they can respond to and act towards. And for you as the GM, it gives you something that you can then plan around in a structured way. In essence, it adds structure to everything. Now, what I like to do is I like to sort of use this task as kind of a wading pool into the deep waters of the campaign. They get to meet some folks who are important. They get to kind of touch on some different things. I like to have different elements I think are going to be important in the campaign sort of reach in and intersect with the task that they're on, to kind of give them a taste for them. And then hopefully when they've completed this task, this objective, then they will have some things they want to do in the world. Maybe they've made some friends, maybe they've made some enemies, maybe some folks will have more tasks for them, maybe they'll have ideas of what they want to do themselves. But hopefully you can use this beginning task to sort of set the ball rolling, give them more momentum rolling downhill, but in a way that has context in the game. And for you as the GM, hopefully creating this objective, maybe just as a world building exercise, will be interesting. It'll also give you some structure in terms of if you're looking at, well, what do I need to prep for this sandbox campaign? Start with whatever that first task is going to be, and then you can use that and then grow outwards from there. And hopefully you and your party can both use this to not only give some structure to this entryway into the sandbox, but then provide some momentum on the player side for figuring out what their characters do, and then from you on the GM side is figuring out what the world is going to be like and the world is going to do. Is this helpful to you? Let me know in the comments. Other than that, game on. Talk to you later.